In this week's MLP offering, Fluttershy must contend with a troublesome houseguest who just won't do what she wants them to and tries to take advantage of her kindness. The best thing about that vague synopsis is that it can be applied to not just this episode, but two others. My least favorite Fluttershy episode, It's Not Easy Being Breezy's, and also my favorite Fluttershy episode, Keep Calm and Flutter On. Now, I could harp on the fact that the same basic premise has been used 3 times for Fluttershy stories now, and use that as ammunition for the oft-made claim that her episodes can be formulaic. But no, a lot of stories can be reduced to the same basic skeleton when you go vague enough. Instead, I bring this up just out of amusement, and as proof that sometimes it can be a fine line which separates the very bad from the very good. And, for me at least, episode 11 of Season 6, Flutter Brutter, finds itself firmly on the latter side of said line. It's another for the long list of Season 6 standouts, and it comes as a shining moment for Fluttershy's character. Which, I suppose I'll start there, since it is the reason this episode manages to achieve excellence. Unlike Applejack, who I started out loving and then started to just rapidly lose interest in, Fluttershy has always struggled to find traction with me because she just tended to frustrate me for how inconsistent her character growth was. Nothing seemed to ever stick with her, and the issues she'd encounter, more so than any other characters, seemed so very limited. Things like her sudden aversion to singing in front of others in Philly Vanilli and the absolutely ridiculous, over-exaggerated way she acted in Scaremaster always really grated on me just for the knowledge of how the character should be past that point already. And yet, I've wanted to love Fluttershy for a while now. Keep Calm and Flutter On was flat out magical to me, and as much as I enjoy Discord, he is very little of the reason why. No, it was all Fluttershy. I adored her in that episode. It made a case for her like no other episode has, as she accomplished something that none of the other ponies could have ever even come close to managing. And my favorite thing is that she is in control the whole time. You're left doubting as you watch the episode, but then there's this exchange.
You see Discord's behind all this, right?
Oh, of course I do. Do you all think I'm a silly, gullible fool?
This is one of my favorite moments in the entire series. In that moment, we realize that everything that has happened, it's all in Fluttershy's plan. She's not letting herself be taken advantage of. She's letting Discord see the sort of kindness he never has before, and in doing so is creating leverage, something of which, in feeling deprived, Discord will want to begin changing. I was so impressed by what Fluttershy managed in that episode that pretty much since that point, I've been waiting for a worthy follow-up. An episode where Fluttershy was that very good again. But it never came, with the exception of Hooffields and McColts, which was perfectly enjoyable, if entirely lacking in anything to wow me. I hadn't liked a single Fluttershy-focused episode since Keep Calm 3 whole seasons ago, and yet, despite that, I never lost hope that eventually I'd get the Fluttershy episode I've long wanted. And now I finally have. Fluttershy is brilliant in this episode. She is so willful and take charge. She's never been this forceful, well, not without taking it too far at least. It's an uncommon display of strength of character, and through it all, she never gives in or lets herself be trampled on. Even Keep Calm made you wonder if she wasn't losing out at times, but here, it's clear the whole way through that she isn't about to let her kindness be abused. When Fluttershy's father says this,
"Well, we may not be as bold as you, Fluttershy."
It functions as a cute joke due to the whole notion of Fluttershy actually being bold in comparison to someone else for once. But I would say bold is a legitimately good word for Fluttershy here, what with all the wonderful expressions the animators gave her and the particularly on-point performance Andrea Libman brought to the episode. And the fact that her parents really are less bold than she is, acting much like she did in earlier seasons or when written poorly, just highlights it all by contrast. The best part though is that as with Keep Calm and Flutter On, it's clear it's not easy for her. I love seeing her so frustrated, seeing her actually get angry for once and it not being like some overblown tantrum. To get just a bit of bitterness to go with Fluttershy's usually sweet demeanor really goes a long way. It makes for a remarkably human, immediately relatable portrayal. And it's a keener demonstration than we've ever gotten before that Fluttershy has in fact learned the lessons she's learned. This is an assured Fluttershy, a confident Fluttershy, but perhaps more importantly, a Fluttershy who is no less kind and sensitive than she should be. It was important for us to see that she has concerns about her decisions, wondering if they're truly for the best, worrying for her brother's sake. She has to be harsh at times in the episode, but ultimately, whether it's to stand up for her parents or to push her brother down the right path, it's clear that it all comes from a place of love. It's remarkably balanced, and it proves that Fluttershy can be allowed to grow and exude more confidence and still remain wholly Fluttershy. And truth be told, the way the episode captures Fluttershy would be enough to automatically seal this one as a favorite for me. As with the pride Fluttershy feels in seeing her brother finally achieve something after so much failure, it's just so gratifying to get this after so much frustration with her. I almost feel like nothing more needs to be said here, but there are definitely at least a couple more things to talk about besides just Fluttershy. And let's start with the elephant in the room. No matter what you might think of the wonderful things the episode did with Fluttershy, I think it's safe to say that it unfortunately will matter less than it should when it comes to how much you enjoy it. No, that is going to hinge almost entirely on what you think of the big guest character of the day, Zephyr Breeze. It's interesting to note that we first heard about Fluttershy having a brother when Andrea Libman let it slip at San Diego Comic-Con in July of 2015, almost a year before the episode aired. The fact of that makes me wonder if the decision wasn't a calculated one. After all, last time one of the main characters suddenly got a brother out of nowhere where there wasn't any evidence of one before, some fans didn't react well. It was probably a smart move to have the fandom expecting it, and in fact excited to see just what sort of pony Fluttershy's brother would be. And I think it's safe to say most of us were surprised in that regard. Zephyr Breeze is a very unique entity among the sibling characters, especially among the brothers. I get the feeling he was tailor-made to be as unlike Big Mac in Shining Armor as possible. For one thing, he's the lone younger brother, but the differences run deeper than that. Big Mac is quiet, reflective, and ultimately mature. Zephyr is loud, brash, and utterly immature. Shining Armor is assured, affable, and accomplished. Zephyr is an abject failure, and hardly a likable one. He and Big Mac do share the trait of insecurity in the face of how they stack up to their sisters, but other than that, he could not be further apart from the other two. Big Mac and Shining Armor are the cool, supportive brothers you want, and Zephyr is pretty much the opposite of that. More contentious sibling relationships are not something we've seen very often in MLP. Sure, there's Rarity and Sweetie Belle, but it feels very different there because of the age difference. Most of the things that put Sweetie at odds with Rarity can be explained very easily by making a point of the fact that she is a child and will very likely become more adjusted and matured as she grows up. Granted, we still haven't seen Pinkie one-on-one with Limestone much, so perhaps there's some friction there, but the sibling bond between Fluttershy and Zephyr we're presented with seems wholly unique just for how very less than perfect it is. Even the way he was introduced was unique for the sibling characters. Big deals were made about the ponies meeting Shining Armor and even Maud and the rest of Pinkie's family. Here, though, everyone just knows Zephyr already. I like this approach. It gives it a more organic feel than if it had been yet another case of, oh, by the way, I have this family member I want you all to meet. Fluttershy's family has remained a complete mystery longer than any other major character aside from Scootaloo, but I think just calmly filling in the blanks was a better way to go about it than to call too much attention to the fact. And the reveal of the parents along with the brother made it even more interesting. On its own, I'm not sure I'd have cared for the idea that Fluttershy's parents are so much like her. That kind of thing can feel cheap and obvious and like it hurts the individuality of the character. I honestly prefer it when the child is immediately and completely distinct from the parents, like Rarity from hers or Pinkie from hers. The parents are likable, though, and have appealing designs. Moreover, I think Zephyr's presence really makes it all come together well. He is the imperfection which keeps ponies so smiley and overnice that they immediately invoked Starlight's Village from the Cutie map to me from being too cloying. So, conceptually, I really like everything about Zephyr. He is, all things considered, the exact brother Fluttershy needed, both to represent new ground for the series and contrast the niceness she and her parents embody. That said, in practice, he's a really hard character to genuinely like. I mean, even once we understand him, he's still this obnoxious presence, sure to make large portions of the audience groan and be hesitant to leave behind their first impressions. Dave Rapp, who wrote the episode, seems to have a real thing for cringe comedy, following up possibly the most divisive sequence of it we've seen yet in the show in Newbie Dash, with a character whose entire existence seems to be based around the idea of just being an embarrassing, socially inept failure. And as with all such things, enjoyment will depend on whether or not you can laugh at it all. I can. I found his scenes in the episode generally quite funny. My absolute favorite bits are his interactions with Rainbow. This was priceless, and something we haven't really seen before. Attraction has always been something more romanticized in MLP. Whether it was from Rarity, Spike, or Trenderhoof, we've mostly just seen a lot of sparkly-eyed swooning. Zephyr is just so forwardly hitting on Rainbow in such a scummy way. It's something I would have never expected to see in the show. And Rainbow's reactions make it better. Every time, the sheer thought of it just stuns her to silence. She's so plainly, so palpably not interested that it's absolutely hilarious. Is it far less amusing to see Zephyr abuse his parents' love as he did and then try and hide behind them? Yeah, it is. Frequently in the episode, he is just low to a point where for some it's going to be really hard for them to ever overlook it. And it doesn't help that most of us probably know someone like Zephyr in real life, selfishly attempting to manipulate every little situation to their own ends. He is a snake who has no qualms about tricking others into doing his work. Looking at the Rarity scene, it even appears like he's willing to put in a concerted effort just to avoid being on task. I mean, really, finding and capturing those animals, that's a lot more work than just dipping some cloth in some dye. The overall effect makes it very easy to want Fluttershy to be even harsher with him than she is. Luckily, his concerns, insecurity about how he compares to his successful sibling, an overwhelming, crippling fear of failure, these are things that are very relatable for a lot of us, and will help some to come around. For others, though, I think it will come as too little, too late. But I appreciate what was done. The character entertained me. Rap needs to be commended for successfully writing the character in such an intentionally grating way, while the voice actor, Beil, brought just the right badly affected smoothness to make the character immediately stand out and attract attention. I think he was exactly what he was intended to be, and whether what that is likable or not, I hope we see more of him eventually. Moving on, this episode brought yet another song to Season 6, which is a good thing in my book. Outside a heartwarming tale, songs have been all too few and far between this season. So much so to the point where when the song started up this time, I was more surprised than ever to be getting one. But whether expected or not, Can I Do It On My Own is quite a good song. It captures the message of the episode beautifully in its lyrics and features some gorgeous melodies and harmonies. It makes impeccable use of its three vocalists, actually. I can't find much information about who Beil is, but he sings Zephyr's parts very well, and both Andrea Libman and Ashley Ball's voices are characteristically lovely. As good as it was, though, I will admit that there was a part of me that was a bit disappointed once Zephyr did start to sing. Fluttershy has been in desperate need of a standout solo song for a while now, and when she started the song up, I did wonder if that's what we were about to get. Still, I can't really complain, as it does hit just the right notes, both figuratively and literally, and is ultimately uplifting. It wasn't quite Pinky's Present or Say Goodbye to the Holiday, but I would say it's worth at least third place as far as songs this season goes so far. So, yeah, I'm back to being impressed with Season 6. Last week it seems was just an unfortunate fluke. This one moved at a good pace, and never throughout the entire episode was I even remotely bored. It had humor, emotion, and lots to get excited about. The combined effect of this episode and the last actually was enough to get me to move Fluttershy up ahead of Applejack on my main 6 rankings, which I don't know if that will last. It's always possible that the frustrating Fluttershy will resurface, or that Applejack will start getting much better episodes, but for now, I feel good about it. Hell, a few more episodes where she's this good, and I can easily see myself starting to like Flutters more than Twilight. And I think that is testament to the power of this one. Despite centering on a character who will undoubtedly divide audiences, it does so much so right that I can't help but just be wowed. Ultimately, it's my third favorite Season 6 episode so far, falling short only of the exceedingly high mark set by the two Nick Confalone offerings. So, take note, MLP writers, more breeze, less breezies. This has been a RarityDash review, thanks for watching, and see you soon.